Hello everyone, welcome to another tutorial on the Medidata Perspective channel. In our today's video, we'll be learning how to update multiple values in our rows of data using advanced method. Here we'll be learning how to use the ApplyMap, and the replace method. A lot of people find using these different methods confusing, so I'll be taking my time to explain each one of these methods. So with this being said, let's dive into our tasks for today without wasting time. So as usual, we'll be using our notebook that contains our sample data set first. Then when we are done with that, we'll come back to use our survey data set to carry out some more examples. So I have my sample data set notebook already opened. This data set contains 5 columns of data which are name, age, city, salary, and occupation. So our first task for today is we'll be looking at how to use the apply method. Apply is used for calling a function on our values, and apply can work on either data frame or series objects, and it acts a bit different when working on series objects from data frame objects. So let's take an example where we will use apply functions on series object first. So let's say, for example, we want to get the length of values of the city columns. We can say df, our column name, which is city, and we can go ahead and call the .apply method and pass in our function, which is length. So if I go ahead and run this, we'll be getting the length values of all the city names. So for example, we have New York, and if we have a count of these 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, so you could see that New and York are 7 letters, while the space in between represents an additional letter word. Okay, so that's what makes it 8. Then for London, we have 6 letters, and you can see we have 6 here. Tokyo is made up of 5 letter words, and that's for that. So you can see now that the total number of characters in each city has been counted and returned to us. Now let's take a look at another example where we can get to update our values using this apply method. Let's say we want to update these values in our names columns to capitalize casing. How do we go about to do that? We can call the apply method and also make use of the capitalize method on it. So we would say df, the name of our column which we are using, name. Then we'll go ahead and call our apply method. But the difference in this situation is that we are going to be adding a lambda function to apply our capitalized method to each values in this column. So we would say lambda and the capitalize. Okay, so what this lambda function simply says is we want to loop through every value in this series object and apply the capitalized method to each of these values. So if we go ahead and run this, okay, so here it's supposed to be capitalized, so let's go ahead and correct that and rerun. So you can see now that we have all our values. The first letter of each values are A, B, Charlie, F, and so forth. So because our values were initially in the capitalized form, we can't really see much of our correction which we just did. So probably let's use the .upper method instead. Okay, so let's call the .upper and run this again. So you can see now we have Alice, Bob, Charlie, and all the names are all in upper casing. So this is a good example where you can make use of the .apply method. To keep these changes in place, in case you are done and you want to keep your changes, all we have to do now is to assign our changes to the series object. So we'll say df name, and we're going to assign this code. So we're saying we want these changes to be in place. Okay, so if I go ahead and run this, And now let's look at our data frame once more. You would see now that our changes have been kept in place. The values in our name column have all been changed to capital casing. So what we did here is called a lambda function, and lambda functions are anonymous functions, and I'll be teaching you on how to write a lambda function in a separate video. Okay, so that's how apply work with series objects. Now let's look at how apply work with our data frame object. When we run apply on a data frame, it runs on each rows or columns in that data frame. So now let's take an example to see what this looks like. In our previous example, we looked at applying length function on the city columns. So let's see how the length function works if we are applying it on each column in our data frame. I will say df dot apply. Okay, so previously when we were calling on the length function on our series object, it gives us all the length of each value in the column, right? So now let's see what it would return now that we're applying our length functions to our entire data frame. Let me go ahead and run this. So you could see now we got name as 8, age 8, city, salary, occupation. So what you can see now that we got is apply method applying the length function to each series in the data frame. So basically what this is telling us here is that our name column has the length of 8 values. So if I look at this name column, you can see we have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Okay, so we have 8 values in this name column. So that's just like the number of rows in each column. That's what is being returned to us, and not the length of each value in that column. We can also get the number of values in each rows by adding the as-is argument and setting it to columns. So I can say as-is, and if I say columns, we're going to be getting the number of values in each row. So you can see our first row we are having 5 values, and if we count we have 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, so that's how using apply works when you are working with series objects and data frame objects. So running apply on a series object applies a function to every value in that series, while running apply to a data frame applies that function to every series in the data frame. Now to apply a function to every individual values in a data frame, we'll have to use the ApplyMap method. The ApplyMap method only works on data frame objects. So let's use the length function once more and look for the length of each values in our data frame. So we'll say df dot ApplyMap, and let's call our length function. Now if I go ahead and run this, you can see now that the ApplyMap is applying our length function to each individual value in our data frame. So for example, if you look at our name column, we have 5 letter words for our first name value. And let me just go ahead and print out our data frame here once more. So you could see Alice is made up of 5 letter words, which we have as 5. Our age value, which is 25, is made up of 2 words, which we have as 2. New York City was made up of 8 words, which we have as 8. Salary, we have 6 words here, and we have 6, and same for occupation. Okay, so to be able to apply a particular function to every value in your data frame, you make use of the ApplyMap method. Why, when you want to apply a particular function to just the values in a column or in a series of data, you make use of the apply method. So I hope now you can see the difference between using the apply method and using the ApplyMap method. Next, we'll be looking at the map method. The map method only works on series objects. The map method is used for substituting each value in a series object with another value. So let's look at an example. So let's say we want to update the values in our city columns. We can do that by saying df, then let's call the column which we are updating our city column, and call the dot map method. Okay, now we are going to be changing some values in our city column. We'll be changing London here to Lagos, and we'll be changing Ghana to Cairo. Okay, so to do that, we have to pass in a dictionary where our key is going to be containing our previous word, which is London, and our value is going to be containing the new word we are changing to, which is Lagos in this case. Okay, so the next word is Ghana. So, and we are changing Ghana also to Cairo. Now if I go ahead and run this, you see that our changes were carried out. Okay, we have Lagos in our London value and we have Cairo in our Ghana value. But if you look at this, there's an important thing you should take note of. Those values that were not changed in that column have all been converted to NaN, which is not a number and which can be identified as missing values. Okay, so to avoid this, you can use the replace method instead of using this map method. So I'll just go ahead and show you how to make use of the replace method. So let me just go ahead and copy this and paste it here, and I'll be changing this map to replace. If I go ahead and run this, now you see that our previous value retained their positions while the changes were also effected. So for London we have Lagos, for Ghana we have Cairo, while other previous values were not affected. Now to ensure that our updated values are implanted in our data frame, all we have to do now is to assign this by saying our df city should be equals to, let me go ahead and copy this and paste here. So if I go ahead and run this, and now let's go ahead and print out our data frame once more. So now you see that our changes have been put in place. We have New York, Lagos, Tokyo, and so forth. So now let's take some example using our survey response dataset. So I have my Stack Overflow survey dataset which we've been using for this playlist. Let's apply some of the advanced filter method we've been learning on this dataset now. So let me just go ahead and scroll down. So in this dataset we have a column which is titled total column. So this column actually is about the salary that is being paid to each respondent in this survey. Okay, so while the frequency column talks about if it's a yearly pay or a monthly pay. So for this example, we'll be looking at this total column. Let's decide that we want to change this name from total to salary, since this column is talking about the salary of each respondent. Okay, so how do we go about to do that? We have to use the .rename method to change the name of our column. So we would say, what's the name of our data frame once more? Data. We'll call our data frame, say data dot, and we'll call the rename method. And now we're going to pass in a dictionary specifying our previous name, which is the total. So this is the previous name of this column. This will be our key and the value which we are changing it to. So we want it to be called salary. So let's go ahead and run this. And if we go ahead once more to look at our data frame, let me scroll down a bit. So let's go up. You will see now that our total is now called salary. Remember that after our total we have our frequency column. Okay, so total frequency. So now that column is not called a salary column. But remember that to keep this change in place, we would have to add the in place argument and say in place equals to true. Okay, so you can go ahead and run this if you are okay with the changes you've made. So let's go ahead and run this, and if we go ahead once more and check if we have a column called salary in our data frame, Let's go ahead and run this now. You see that that was true. We have that column now. Next, let's take a look at the column which is called the SO account. Okay, let me scroll down. It's a bit at the extreme end, and okay, so this is the SO account and it contains yes and no value, and this column is talking about if a respondent has a Stack Overflow account or not. So we want to change these values, which is yes or no, to true and false values. So if a respondent have a Stack Overflow account, we'll be changing our yes to true, and if the respondent does not have a Stack Overflow account, we'll be changing it to false. So to do that, I'll be using the map method to make this change, since we are just looking at two values, yes and no. So I'll be calling our data, which is our dictionary, and the column which we want to look at, which is our SO account. Okay, so let me just go ahead and copy this, Ctrl C, and I'll be pasting it here. Okay, now we can go ahead and call the .map method and pass in a dictionary which will be containing our previous value and the new value which will be changing it to. So our key which is containing our previous value was yes, and all yes values will now be changed to true boolean, right? And our previous value of no would also be converted to false boolean. Now if I go ahead and run this, so now you could see now that we have true and false values in place of our yes and no values which we had earlier on. So in place of the yes and no values, you could see our first row was none, which is not a number. We had yes as our second row, yes, yes, yes as the first 5 rows. Okay, so you could see now that we have true for those rows of data. Now to keep these changes in place, we would have to assign these our new values to our column. So I can go ahead and copy this and say data, and we're looking at our Stack Overflow account column, and let's paste this here. Okay, so if I go ahead and run this, and if we look at our data frame once more, let's say we want to look at the first 5 rows of our data frame, we would see now that our changes were made. So let's scroll and look for our SO account column. So you could see this is the column, and in that contains true and false values. So now if you remember, we made use of the map method because we're only changing this column, and this column of data contains just 2 values which are true and false values. So in a situation where the column contains, let's say, 4 values and you want to change just 1 or 2 values, you would have to use the dot replace method, because using the dot replace method is going to keep in place those values that you are not changing. So this brings us to the end of this video. In our next video, we'll be looking at how to add and remove rows and columns of data in our data frame. Please ensure to leave a thumbs up if you find this video educative and informative. Also endeavor to subscribe if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet. Share this video to your friends, loved ones who you know are interested in data analysis, learning Python programming, and how to analyze healthcare data. We have a playlist that is dedicated to that. And don't forget to drop your comments and questions in the comment section below. I'll do my best to answer each and every one of your questions. Also drop any recommended topic you want me to create a video on. Bye for now, and see you in my next video.